titles. So maybe I will start and just before we really get into the contents by giving you a few suggestions in terms of the use of this webinar facility. So if you need it, on the top of your screen you will see a little flag, and you can change the language if you want. So if you want to switch to your language, this is something that you can do. This is on the top of the screen, should be next to the title of the webinar. In terms of the presentation, you can interrupt me at any time by posting a question into the chat that is on the bottom left side of the screen. So that should give you the full the full ways of interacting with me during the session. There will also be some short surveys that I will be posting at some point during the webinar, and that will allow it to be a bit more interactive in terms of exchange. So welcome again. My name is Hervé Legenvre. I'm heading research and the Value Creation Observatory at EIPM. I'm professor of innovation and entrepreneurship at EIPM. And it's really a pleasure to be with you today in order to share some of the recent outcomes from our research activities, and more specifically outcomes of some workshop we've been conducting last year on the topic of how to organize the best and the most suitable innovation workshop. Together with me today, I have Silmara Codeville, who's been organizing and supporting the overall webinar. And in terms of audience, we've got 19 countries represented, with people coming from Singapore to Brazil, a lot of people from Europe, from Finland, from France, from Germany, from Ireland, from Italy, from Luxembourg, from Poland, so and many more. So it's really great to have all of you together with us for this presentation. In terms of industries, we've got also a very broad representation with automotive, telecom, utilities, drugs, pharmaceuticals, but also some industrial equipment. So quite a broad representation in terms of industries, and that's really great to see all of you joining this session. So let me go through the aim. No, just a few words, very few words about EIPM. So we are located all around the world. We are purely dedicated to education, and all our research activities are supporting education. Today, education is not just about equipping people with, building some purchasing strategy. It's about exploration, innovation. It's about bringing together collective intelligence, rethinking how we work, redesigning our purchasing practices, because we don't just need, one process that fits every situation, but in the current business context, we need, a broader diversity of practice that can really help us to take things forward, and we need to evolve our culture. So this means that, whatever we do in terms of education, this is about being ambitious, it is about being engaged as a learner, this is about reflecting on our existing practices, on what we've done, this is about experimenting, trying new things. It's about thinking big picture, but also managing some of the paradox we are facing today, when we simultaneously look at consolidating some activities and bringing some innovation. This is something that forces us to think with a bit more agility and to handle some of the paradox. And education is about receiving feedback. It's about getting input from your peers and from educators on you know, what's great and what could be improved. In terms of the webinar, really I want to, you know, put everybody on the same level of knowledge in terms of what's an innovation sourcing process. So I will start from that perspective. This was the first aim of the session. We'll define briefly innovation. We will present the innovation sourcing process, and then we will help you to plan for an innovation workshop. I will be introducing a broad diversity of innovation workshop. One of my core message is there is not one single format that can help you. There's a diversity of format, and you will need to find the one that's really supporting, you know, what you're trying to achieve. And we'll be sharing with you some tools in terms of how to plan for some of the innovation workshops. So, and I saw someone said coming from India. So yes, welcome, Nilanjan. So from India, I'm very happy to have you with us. So again, feel free to use the chat whenever, you know, you have questions, you want me to come back on a point, or to go about explaining a bit more something. So maybe just to set the context, I think it's important to put back innovation from a buyer-supplier perspective into a certain context, and that context is an historical context. So basically, if we go back in time, if we look at, you know, before 1870, at that time there was no very large companies. You had factories already for sure, but you didn't have, like, you know, multi-site, multi-country, you know, broad-scale type of companies. And this was a world of entrepreneurs. And basically, the people that were doing purchasing were actually the people doing the selling and the people that were running the business. So the entrepreneur was both buying and selling on the local, regional, or global trade routes. And then 1870, this is really the time where we see the birth of the big companies, especially in the US. This was in the railroad industry. And the big challenge is to operate railroads on the full scale, you know, of the US. And the challenge is about, you know, getting to scale, being able to, you know, operate this very complex system, which is the railroad at that time. And this is when actually that you see the first purchasing departments that were implemented in large organization as a separate, a large company as a separate function. And this was really the time when purchasing was established. Actually, some of the early head of purchasing were reporting to the CEO of the company. That was the case, for instance, in the California Railroad Company. Focus was on standardization, getting to scale, having people that could be discussing with the salespeople that were appearing on the sales side, especially for steel and other safety products like the brakes. So that's really, you know, the birth of purchasing together with the birth of the big company. Then 1940, very important for the profession that was happening. This is the time where the trade barriers were established. Every country decided that in order to, you know, strengthen its army and its, you know, country, well, they needed to protect the nascent industry everywhere. And you see trade barrier, trade tariff appearing in every country. So companies, they become national champion. And basically, they can't expand outside of their boundaries. So what they do is they expand along the full value chain. So that's why you see vertical integration taking place at that time. The dream of Mr. Ford was to have one factory where the raw materials would be coming in and the car would be gating out. There would be no suppliers of components, of parts, of mechanical parts. It would be about transforming purely the raw material into a car. And the idea also was to buy some of the rubber plantation, for instance, in order to secure access to the rubber they needed for the tires. So vertical integration. And what does it mean from a purchasing point of view at that time? Well, purchasing goes back to really the basics. It's just about, sourcing some raw materials. It is about making some planning at a very operational level and managing transactions. So back to some very practical and concrete activities. Then, from 1914 to 1990, there is a long period, but if you want, you see, trade being reopened everywhere, little by little. And in the 80s, this is really the time where a lot of countries are starting to reopen trade on a massive scale. This is the time where we see Japanese product being very effective in competing on many different markets. Focus is on global competition. It is about quality. And as all companies are trying to compete in new countries, they're trying to go global, European first and then global. Well, they outsource. They outsource what's at the back end of their activities. They outsource what's non-core in order to focus on the core business, but on a global scale. They need money to reinvest in operating on their global scale. They need to focus on what they're the best at. We all know the story. And this puts back purchasing at the center of the game in terms of ensuring performance, the supply chain. And of course, as we go global, we are facing all the challenge in terms of rationalizing the supplier base, managing risk, but also because, you can negotiate for some time, building some collaboration with some suppliers in order to deliver some of the targets on the cost side. So that's what we've been living as a period of globalization from 1980 to, let's say, 2005, more or less. And today we've been moving for about 10 years slowly into a new period. This new period is about accessing distant capabilities. This is a time where, the industry has become very fragmented. Everybody has been slicing and dicing their value chain. Between the raw materials and the final good, typically you've got, on average, 9, 10 players across any value chain. And, they look more as an ecosystem today. They're quite fragmented. What we see is new technology coming in, digital, IoT. We see startups bringing some innovation into the game. So it's no more just a chain. It's an ecosystem with many players who are contributing to deliver the final goods at the end, and the good is no more just a product. It's a mix of a product and a service. It's a solution. It's a mix of hardware and software. So we see this real transformation taking place over the past 10 years in terms of the evolution of the industries. R&D is interestingly now increasingly focused on open innovation, because you're no more managing the full chain. You're only looking at a specific part, and therefore open innovation is one of the key challenges from an R&D perspective. And we in purchasing, we need to support to bring innovation into the game to achieve a level of ambidexterity, still being able on one hand to deliver short-term results, but on the other hand, being able to bring some of the innovation coming from outside. And not just from existing supplier, but from new suppliers, new companies, including some of the startups we've mentioned before. Focus is, yes, on innovation, but also still on cost and cash, especially, after the 2008 economic challenge that has been, leading us into, a slopy kind of economic evolution. So why are we interested in innovation today? Well, it's not just about the progress of the function. It's in relation to what's happening in terms of industries, how industry architecture are being, rethought and are being challenged these days, is leading us to take a role into these innovation aspects from a purchasing point of view. That's a simple picture. On the left side, you've got the classic, value chain where, raw materials are transformed into components, subsystem provider, OEMs. If you take a company like IBM, they used to turn sand into algorithm. They would be holding every step of the value chain. Today, they're just one player within a much broader ecosystem with a lot of companies that are acting both as a competitor, as a supplier, as a client. You have complementers, you've got startups, brokers, people who offer service on top of your product, on the side, in collaboration with you. We have much more complex ecosystems in front of us. Interestingly, a few years ago, 4 years ago, we asked purchasing managers what they thought were their priorities in terms of going about innovation from external players. So we had at that time 83% of them saying they were focusing on existing player, 34% of them mentioning tier 2 and tier 3 supplier as source of innovation they wanted to work with, and 24% mentioning startups and new players. And at that time they said, well, in the future, 51% said we want to work more with tier 2, tier 3, and 54% already anticipated they wanted to work more with startup and new players. And we are currently, gathering more data, redoing the survey, so looking 4 years after what the picture looks like today. So we'll send you a link so you can contribute to this, because we really appreciate if you can help us build these types of picture for the future and get a bit of intelligence of where we go in terms of innovation from a purchasing point of view. And I think if you take a number of industries, this is quite common now. The smart city is not going to be designed and engineered by the team of the town hall. It's going to be delivered, designed, architect, and assembled by suppliers. The autonomous car is going to have a massive impact on the architecture of the automotive industry. We see already over the past 2-3 years a lot of moves in terms of who's specializing in the data focused type of components, and probably we'll see all the classic hardware where data is not having so much value, that will be going in different types of suppliers within the industry that purely focusing on the cost aspect. And the importance of software, the importance of telecoms and new services and everything's new technology related to electric vehicles. This is fundamentally changing the architecture of the automotive industry. It will be a slow process, but this is something that's really forcing buyers to rethink their role in that industry. If we take a bottle of champagne, this is a product. I mean, innovation is not coming from the bubble. Innovation is not so much coming from the bottle itself. Innovation is coming from the stickers, is coming from the packaging. And who's providing that? The supplier of the packaging. But if you talk to the supplier of the packaging and you ask them, where is the innovation coming from? They say, well, this is the people who are making the ink, for instance. And the people who are making the ink, I went to see them, I asked them, and they say, well, this is because we're using some new ingredients from chemical companies. So the innovation is a joint effort all along the chain, bringing together quite a number of players into the game. And, we can go on manufacturing with the production 4.0, smart factories. This is also something that's going to force us to rethink quite extensively, how we work with suppliers and how we build their contribution, how we innovate with them, how we, create something different. So I think the examples are quite, obvious these days and really interesting. Hey, maybe it's time for a little survey to get you involved. So, hey, I'm gonna go there. Oh, Silmara, help me. So the little plus has disappeared. Sorry for this.
Where's the presentation? Go in sections. Go. No.
I think I've been closing the presentation when I shouldn't have been.
Oh, so go to the plus here. There's a little plus on the top.
Can you help me? Ah, yes.
Yes. Go.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you should have in front of you now a screen with some questions. For me, I'm only seeing the result, but the formal one is innovation, one of the formal objectives of your purchasing team. Then have you developed a specific process for innovation in purchasing? And then the last one is, do you intend to run innovation workshops this year or next year? Oh, I see answering comings. Oh, answers coming. Yeah.
Question. For the time being or future? You have a question?
In terms of formal objective, is it for the time being? In terms of specific processes, do you have one already that you've started to develop or started to implement? And for the innovation workshop, I'm talking 2018, 2019, next 2 years. Okay, so I see still some answers coming. Great, great, great. I think that's all. Ah, yes, I'm being told I need to drink water while you're finishing to answer. So I'm going to share the result with you. I mean, this is quite interesting. I mean, now you're saying that 64% of you are actually having a formal objective related to innovation. Still lacking some, specific process to support with this. So that's only 16% who've developed some process to go along with this. And a lot of you are already planning to run innovation workshop, 68%. Well, I guess there's a little bias, because if you're here today, it's because probably you've got an interest in running one of those. So, really interesting data. We can share that as well at the end of the presentation. I see a question. It was just a thanks for the answer. So let me go back to the presentation. Okay, so yes. So let me just take a few more minutes in order to define what's innovation. So a lot of time, we think innovation is just about having ideas. It's just about having blue sky ideas, walking in a park and then suddenly seeing the light and being a genius person who's, think quite unusual. But no, this is not how it works. Innovation is always about, finding problems and finding solutions. The great inventors have told the great stories about how lucky they were and, how they had ideas when they were walking in a park on the banks of the Hudson River in New York City, like for Edison. But in fact, they were working extremely hard at finding problems. They were welcoming everybody to bring them problems, and then they were looking for solutions. And if you think of the story of Eureka, oh, I've got a great idea. I'm Archimedes, and suddenly I'm inventing a new laws of physics. Why? Why did we have this invention? Well, but simply because the king at that time asked Archimedes, I've received a statue, and I would like to know if this statue is made of full gold or if it's, just plated gold. And then Archimedes, well, he couldn't destroy it. He couldn't cut it by the middle because, he needed to do a non-destructive control here. So, he came up with the idea of putting it in the water and seeing, if it would be falling down the water. So the laws of Archimedes, were invented not because Eureka, but simply because he had a problem to solve. And Thomas Edison said, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. So, it's been looking at a lot of problems in order to put the whole electric systems together. He's done a lot of experiment in terms of better understanding the problem and better finding solution to it. So some of the very people that are associated with, innovation is about finding ideas. Well, they also tell us that, this is about finding problems and then finding solutions. Do you have any idea? Yeah, you can put that in the chat. Who was the first person who put together a drone? Who was the first person, the first company, the first institution who designed the first drone? Any clues? The American Army? No. No idea, no idea. Well. This was Tesla. You know Tesla? Well, not the company Tesla, but Mr. Nikola Tesla. And that was 1890 something. So more than 100 years ago. You know, that's a long time. So more than 100 years before, we started to see drones everywhere, someone had the idea of building a drone. Someone, Mr. Tesla, had put a patent about, having some unmanned vehicles, aerial vehicles. So basically, this was a long 100-year process of solving many problems, finding a lot of solutions in terms of increasing the range, increasing the flight time, reducing the weight, increasing the speed, being able to, go higher up in terms of altitude and reducing the cost. So this is a whole story. The drone is a whole story of solving problems and finding solutions. Someone is asking me if this was really flying. So I guess Nikola Tesla, you were referring to. Well, at that time he had a prototype that was tested on a water tank. So instead, because we are not at the time of the Wright brothers, they're still working on their their system to test aerodynamics. And when Tesla is working on his concept of drone, actually he's been testing it on a water tank on the water. So the idea was for stuff on the water, stuff in the air that would be controlled remotely. But the first prototype he presented during an exhibition, and I don't know if it was in Philadelphia, I think so, but was actually something that was pushing a water tank, and he made it look like magic. People were thinking that Mr. Tesla was controlling the water tank with his mind. So they all make you believe this is not just hard work. They always make you believe this is magic. They are genius people, and so they should be, receiving a lot of money and extend the lifetime of the patent. That's the whole story of inventors. I've actually written my PhD on this, so don't get me going on these types of topic. So what's important as well, innovation is about problems and solutions. There's a lot of different types of innovation, and they can be using different technology, different type of solutions, different business model, or they can have different level of impact on the market. And basically, some of the innovation can be incremental, some can be a bit more breakthrough because they use new technology, new solutions that are totally different from what exists today, or other are real game changer because they change the market, they change who is buying them, they change, they create new market, they create new demand. And we've got this very special type of innovation which is called disruptive. They are kind of a low performing technology that are quickly becoming much more efficient and that are displacing existing technology and existing player. That's what we call disruptive. They're not actually about using new advanced technology. They're very often about using technology that existed before but are quickly improving. So what's important from a purchasing point of view is well, just to make sure that for supporting the business, we've got a diversity of project, and very often we start more with a portfolio of incremental innovation project with supplier, and after a few years, the challenge is to work with supplier to get more breakthrough or more game changer type of solution for the business, and to bring more important types of innovation here. We also did so in the survey we did 4 years ago, we asked a number of things. And what was interesting is innovation is not just about product. It's not just about being different in terms of product and services. It can be about customer experience. It can be about resilience. It can be about increasing cost and efficiencies. It can be about accessing new market. It can be about innovating the business model. And what's really interesting here is what we've been able to show in that study is that the company who have the best financial performance are the companies who do a lot of projects in terms of cost, risk management, product development together with the supplier, more than the average company, but they also do more of the access to new market and more of innovative business model type of innovation project with supplier, which are typically, more in the area of game changer and disruptive type of innovation. So very often, what you have is companies starting with incremental on the cost, risk, and product development aspect in terms of innovation with supplier, and then you move into this, more fundamental, more impactful type of innovation. Hey, I've got a little question for all of you. Think of an insurance company. You're driving your car on the motorway, and suddenly, your car is broken down. So you stop. So what do? First thing you do is you call and you talk to someone on the phone. Is it an employee from the insurance company? No, this is one of their suppliers. Then someone is picking you up, coming to your car, picking your family, putting the family into a taxi, taking your car into a garage. Is that an employee from the insurance company? No, this is a supplier. And then, the garage is, repairing the car, and the expert is coming to assess how much money there is associated to that. Was this about really the employee doing this? Well, 1 out of 2. 1 expert out of 2 in the insurance industry is actually, working for the insurance company. The rest are people coming from suppliers. So in that case, with all these vendors supporting the insurance process, what type of impact do you have on the left side? So I have a survey on this. So this insurance company, this is a little quiz for you, all of you. Is this having an impact on efficiency in terms of reducing risk, service differentiation, enhancing customer experience, accessing new markets, creating an innovative business model? I can see people changing their mind, moving from one to another. I think we're getting close to stabilizing the answers. I see some more. Maybe I'm going to wait for the last one. Okay, I'm going to show the results. So the winner is enhancing customer experience. And yes, that was exactly the purpose of the insurance company. What they did is they worked with the vendors in terms of making sure they would deliver in terms of the brand promise of the company, that they would bring the extra little services, that they would put a little logo on their, work equipment in order to show that they were supporting the insurance company and the user in that very specific moment. So well done, 33%, that's great. I see 25% talking about efficiency and cost. I think that's an habit of purchasing. We see everything being about, you know, cost and efficiencies. But in this case, the main reason, the main project was about enhancing customer experience. Probably, this was also having some impact in terms of risk, in terms of perception and differentiation, in terms of the efficiency. If the customer were satisfied, certainly they would be talking to their friends and saying, yep, you know, I really found the support from my insurance company was great at that moment, and that could help them access new markets. The innovative business model is a bit more difficult to defend in that case, because I don't think it's really changing how the value is delivered, by whom the value is delivered, and how money is made on that case. So yeah, customer experience, and after, to a point, some of the other elements. Great. Let me go back on this on the content, and you know, keep going in terms of you know, sharing some of the questions you have. Just before we get really into the topic of innovation workshops, just want to remind you, probably some of you have seen that from myself, from the EIPM. This is the innovation sourcing process. You remember, we need problems and then we need solutions. So we need to find problems. We need to go and talk to the users, talk to the customer, talk to the business partner, listen to them with empathy and get their pain point, get their needs. Look at, you know, the future roadmap they want to have to deliver to the market, really understanding how they're trying to differentiate and what would really make a difference for them. So that's really about finding problem, understanding how the future is going to look like, and how we can bring solutions that can help match the gap between the future and now. On the other side, we need to go into the ecosystem. We need to look at existing supplier, new suppliers. And we need to try to understand where we have capabilities that can help us to answer to these problems. We need to assemble the right type of you know, supply network in order to deliver the new solutions that are going to help answer to the problem, in order to involve supplier in innovation projects so we can create commercial performance, driving growth, getting revenue up, and also financial performance, getting costs down. So that's really the process we have, the three breaks, very big picture, high level, with a lot of different activities you can do in each of them. It's not like a linear process. You can start from one hand. You can look in the market and, you know, find some suppliers who've been working on some very interesting things, present it inside, see if there is a problem this can really help to solve. Or you can, you know, start again working on a new product, a new project, after, you know, a past collaboration with a supplier. You can start everywhere into this. You have different tools and techniques you can use in each of them. But at the end, you know, this is not so, you know, one after the other type of process box style stuff. It's more holistic. It's more about different practice you need to assemble depending on the situation and on the case. So innovation workshop, where do they fit in this? Well, right in the middle, they fit here. And the innovation workshop is sometimes a way for the business to, you know, better understand how they can frame the problem they want to solve. This is about the suppliers trying to think in terms of how we can help bring some of the solution, and this could be the start of the project. So workshops with suppliers on innovation, especially in a world which is an ecosystem where you don't always work with exactly the same players on the same technology, on the same type of solution. They're really at the center of this process. They really help bring the different elements together. They really help to kick off the innovation project and making sure you have the right solution for the right type of problems you want to solve. So now I promise you something. I promise you that I would show you that there are different ways of organizing them. So what I'm going to first say is there are three ways to organize the innovation workshop. The first type of innovation workshop is what I call come and show. This is taking place in your offices, and you're asking supplier to come and show you some of their innovation that could be of value to you. So you bring them inside your walls so they show what they can deliver. The other one is about go and see. take a small group from the business, go with, you know, someone from marketing, from R&D, and go and see suppliers, go and see potential suppliers, visit them, look at, do they have capabilities? Do they have solutions to my problem? So that's a different way of doing it. It's not about staying in your walls. It's about going outside together and having a look at what's, you know, over there. But here, you know, in these two cases, we've only seen or we only shown things. So there's another way. This is the bottom side. And that can be in your walls, on the walls of the supplier, on independent place. It's about let's do. It's about working together. It is about prototyping new ideas. It is about, you know, really finding solutions to problems. So that's a let's do type of workshop. That's 3 different ways of organizing workshop. Every time we think innovation workshop, we've got this kind of habit. Well, we'll tell them to come and they're going to show us what they can do. When you can do a lot of different ways. Come and show, go and see, and let's do. So I'm going to share a little case study where you will find in the slide, you will find a little video that was captured during the Cherry Pack at L'Oréal. So the Cherry Pack was started, well, 5 or 6 years ago at L'Oréal. This was about the packaging suppliers. So how did they organize it? And the first year they did it, they started by finding problems. How did they find problems? They went to every business, to every brand in L'Oréal, and they said, could you provide us some brief? Provide us some brief that are describing what type of, you know, innovation we would like from packaging into the future. So they were looking at problems to solve. They sent that to a broad number of suppliers, maybe 100, 150. And it says, here are the brief. Now you send us some ideas in terms of innovation, and there will be a competition. Not everybody will be invited to share them, but we will be selecting a number of you that will be presenting. So that was creating a competition, showing that, you know, the focus was actually on innovation. And then during 2 days in the headquarters of L'Oréal, and you will see that in the video, you know, they had this very big event where they brought together more than 700 people from L'Oréal. You know, product managers, marketing people, people from operations, from each of the brand. They made sure the CEO was there, the CEO was there, that everybody was around. So, and everybody was able to see some of the innovation coming from the supplier. But one thing happened. You know, when they went back to every business and they started to have them, the team that put together, you know, this workshop, well, they realized that there wasn't many projects that had been started and kicked off. It was a great event. It was well organized before, but after, nothing was happening. So instead of abandoning and thinking it's not working well, they did something quite interesting. They said, well, we need to, you know, put as much effort after as we put before. So the next time they organized a Cherry Pack, they actually put a screen in front of every supplier, and every person from the business that was coming in would put the badge, and, you know, if they liked the innovation, they would, you know, press a little like. So they had created data. And at the end of the 2 days, they were able to look at all of the data, and they were able to see that, hey, you know, from that brand, there were 3 of them that were interested by that supplier with this innovation. So they say, well, let's make sure they connect. And from there, they were able to really push for some innovation to happen and to take place. So quite an interesting type of format. This is a format that I would call come and show, because you send the problem and they come and show you some of the solution they have to your problem. Okay? I hope you like that one. Next one. I've got a few like that, but I'm just going to do 2 today. This is a case from Bayer. So Bayer was at some point looking into how could we go into this Internet of Things, these smart factories, production 4.0, but they kept having, so it was a supply organization that was looking at how could we bring digitalization in. And basically, they were organizing internal meetings, but that wasn't progressing very fast. So the people from innovation told the people from the supply organization, why don't you put them in a bus and send them outside to look for problems and build prototypes and pitch some new ideas? And that's what they did. They simply sold to the business tickets, come with us for a week, come on board, get in a bus, let's go and visit some of our own factories, let's go and visit some of our suppliers, let's go and visit some of the innovation partners like the Fraunhofer Institute in Dortmund. And from that, let's understand our problems, let's frame our problems, let's build solutions and prototype them. And when they came back, they were pitching ideas. And from that, they were organizing, they initiated some of the project because top management could put some money on some of the project. So this was about going outside, and it was going further than simply seeing outside. It was also about framing problem and doing prototyping, pitching projects. So it was about doing. It was a let's do, taking place outside. Again, you'll see the video. It's quite nice, and you really see the bus going around, the people, the type of activities, the rapid prototyping. Typical in innovation, we call that Frankenstein prototype. Very simple, very basic type of stuff. So that's a different way of describing an innovation, of organizing an innovation day. Pushing people out, exposing them to external solutions, seeing the capabilities from outside. They know their problem. They can see outside what would be a relevant solution coming in. It's not always about, bringing others in. In fact, you've got, very different ways of workshop you can organize. So, of course, you can organize a fair where you invite suppliers, you put them into your museum, you tell them, show us your most innovative type of a solution of today. During the afternoon, maybe we'll get everybody to come and visit you. I mean, is that really a workshop? Well, that's just a fair, internal, it's interesting, it creates a lot of interactions, but, that's barely a workshop, to be honest. You can have some, one-to-one workshops in terms of creating alignment meetings. You've probably done that in terms of having some alignment on technology roadmap, future products, future solutions, some of the challenge, how do you see the trends? So this is more like a one-to-one type of session with the supplier, where what you're looking at is to align in terms of strategy, align in terms of future development, align in terms of innovation. Hackathon, any kind of ways of pitching new ideas. An interesting one I've seen was in the banking industry. So this was a bank that decided to work together with IBM, and they organized a competition for startup. So this was a sort of a common show, but it was co-organized by the bank and IBM. So it was very attractive for the startup. It was 3-4 years ago already. And the startup were pitching some of their ideas both to the bank and to IBM in order to suggest some innovation here. So that's the type of things under the hackathon you can have. Lean walks can simply about inviting some suppliers, a few or one supplier, and taking them through the production area, supply chain area, some of the customer journeys, and getting them to understand what they deliver to you, how it's used, how it's embedded into your processes, into your products, and from that, identifying some waste, identifying some innovation ideas. This is very much, about incremental type of innovation. It's about come and, it's a bit more than just show me something, but it's already starting to do, because typically you would have a walk in terms of really understanding all the steps of the process, looking at what is the waste, what is added value. Problem solving session, you can put a problem on the table, you can invite one supplier, a few suppliers, and you can say, let's spend a half day, let's spend a day trying to solve them. In the automotive industry, some years ago, very early in the product development, we would be building multiple prototypes for a single type of part, for instance, a component. So, for a gas exhaust systems, you would come up very, very early with 12 different, prototypes that would be really made like in a rough ways, just to explore ideas, just to look at, different options together with the supplier. So it's a problem-solving type of session. This is the type of specification we want to have, and this is what we see as the main problem behind them to solve, and how we can find what are the different types of solutions, how to prototype them. It's about learning together. In terms of on the com side, but much more on the let's do, what we see more these days is a startup accelerator. So basically, you bring in some startup inside your company. So very often, it's not just about a day. It's about like hosting them for some weeks, for some months. It's interesting, like Vodafone with Tomorrow Streets. They've put together within the purchasing team in Luxembourg in VPC their own startup accelerator. So basically, they focus on startup that have already matured quite a bit. They've got some development already in place. It's not just the early stages, but they have clients maybe in the US, and they bring them in Luxembourg to expose them to the business partner within Vodafone, but also to other companies around, other potential clients they could be having. And this is about, for instance, expanding into Europe. Prototyping lab, that's also very close to what I was describing in terms of the automotive and bringing people around from a supplier to try to come up with different prototypes, different solutions. And, I've described the case of the ideation bus for the let's do much more on the go and see side. So that's on the C side. So you see, what I'm trying to do here is to give you a message. And that message is there is not a single format. There is not one way of organizing a workshop. You've got different types of workshop. So the question is now, who knows the next question? How to choose, of course. So basically, who would you get to come and show you something? Well, you get the company that are very attracted to work with you. So you've got some of your existing partners, you've got some of the startup that would see you as the obvious player, you've got some, some of the companies that would be really ready to work hard, run the last mile in order to, sell you something, work for you, bring you some innovation. So this is the situation where, in any case, you're attractive to them. But on the go and see side, well, sometimes not everybody, not every supplier, potential company is willing to put their best engineers to work for you. They might not be, putting their best brain in order to come up with the most, fantastic innovation that will solve every problem you have internally. So you've got to go and see them. And it's also a way of challenging the mindset of the people inside the company. If you bring suppliers from outside to your company, they are in their kingdom. The business partner are in their natural environment, and they have this attitude about judging things. If you take them, you bring them outside, you go scouting, you go exploring, you go together, and this is really opening, their mindset, changing their way of looking at the world, helping them to be more receptive to some of the external innovation. So go and see is really good about breaking some of the resistance in terms of external innovation from some of the business partners. If you are in the show and see side, very much you're in the push. Basically, you let the supplier push some innovation toward you. You're not trying to be the first. What you're trying to do is to catch in your net what's already coming up. So basically, you're waiting to see what solutions are coming from the ecosystem, and through the show and the see, you're trying to take the ones that are relevant for you. You let them push. If you go on the let's do side, this means that you're bringing them the problem and you expect them to start to put some resources to solve the problem. So you're more on the pull side. You would be ahead of others. You're really looking at being among the first to solve that problem in that context. So this is really about anticipation, not just about, getting what's mature in the market, but really, making steps toward creating something totally new for the industry, for instance. So that's much more of the pull. You're pulling new solutions from outside by sharing some problems, and they work on the solution. So now I'm giving you something that's really useful. This is what I've designed to help you, create the perfect innovation day just for you. This is the Innovation Workshop Configurator. On the left side, you've got the goal. You can have different aim behind the Innovation Workshop. Maybe this is about supplier intelligence, getting to know, making sure your business partners are aware of what's happening in the market. Maybe it's about aligning, making sure that we've got the same view on the company side and the supplier side. Maybe it's about finding new ideas. Maybe it's, looking at what new solutions are coming up on a broad way. Maybe it's about challenging our mindset, seeing the world differently. Maybe it's about finding a solution to a specific problems or to a set of problems. So the first thing is you need to pick your goal. And you can't achieve 5 at a time. So pick the one that are really helping you the most, that are really essential for you within your context. And then you define the parameters that are going to help you achieve that. Will it be a see or a do? Do you want to see or show or do something? Is it going to take place in the walls of your company or out in the ecosystem at the supplier? Are you going to be with one supplier at a time, or will you be bringing many suppliers? In the case of L'Oréal, packaging is a very, there's so many packaging coming up. There's so many companies. They brought 35 suppliers together in the same room. But other industry, you might want just to have one-to-one sessions, maybe not bring all of them together because of the competition issues. So also, are you going to pick a few selected partners, maybe 5, 6 people from the business, or do you want to bring a lot of people with you? Put 30 people in a bus or bring 700 managers into the session. So you need to take these decisions. Are you working on today's challenge, or are you really looking into the future? Are you looking at tomorrow, 3 years, 5 years ahead? And that's really answering this question, positioning what are your goals and what are your parameters. They will help you define, the type of workshop you need to organize. And the last point is about, it is about product, process. It's about, you can take also the surfboard, what I showed you with the risk, the efficiency, with the product differentiation. Well, you can also pinpoint these elements. So let me give you an example. I've mentioned the Lean Walk, and this was a type of a workshop run by some companies. I think there is someone from Grundfos into the room here today. And actually, this was a type of workshop that was organized there at some point. But when I was working at Renault Nissan, we had the same type of things going on in the factories. So basically, the Lean Walk is about finding new ideas. You bring the supplier. What you do is you ask the supplier to prepare in a brainstorming what type of added value, what type of improvement they can bring to you. Within your business, you also do the same. You bring people from quality, people from operations, logistics, from purchasing, and together, what kind of added value they could bring, what kind of improvement they can bring to the party. And then, you bring them the evening before. On the morning, you go early, and you follow how their product is integrated into your factory, your product, your service, your customer journey. And then as you go and progress, you look at what is the waste, what is added value, use basic techniques of Lean. You can have a very short training, just before to start this. But really the idea is to observe. Observing is a great way of getting access to innovation. Observation is a way of seeing problems. And together, walking along a line and seeing how products are integrated into a process or a product is a great way to see problems. It's a great way to find solutions. And then what you do is in the afternoon, you can spend some time, redoing some brainstorming and then deciding, what do we want to achieve within a week, within a month, or within 6 months. And you can come up with, a good list of 5, 6 incremental innovation projects. This is about much more C. Inside your company, you bring one supplier with selected partner. You see, I'm on this side. You work on a current issue. And basically, you look at a process and a little bit product. So that's one case. Let's say now you want to gather a lot of supplier intelligence. So what you can do is, you invite all the supplier for a supplier conference, and then you say in the afternoon in our museum, in our main hall for the business, what we're going to do is we're going to have in our innovation center, we're going to have this type of fair where you can show some of your latest developments. And what we can do as purchasing is to make sure that, we can schedule some meeting with some of the business partners. So that takes a bit of time of preparing. The idea is not for purchasing to be involved in each discussion, but it's finding ways of, making sure there is connection between the business and the people from the supplier. This here is quite similar, less sophisticated, compared to the case of L'Oréal that I've been sharing with you. This is about, come and show. This is about seeing the invention, seeing the innovation from the supplier. It takes place in your wall. You can bring many suppliers here. You can bring many partners into the game. And, it might be about short-term, mid-term type of issues. Focus in terms of solutions coming up. It's not long-term revolutionary things. It's not just solving yesterday's problem. It's a bit further. So another way of, seeing on the configurator how this looks like. Other example. So this one is about, no, that was the same. Alignment meeting. So basically, this is a workshop together with a supplier. So you're a technology company, you're doing mobile phones, and what you want is to see with your provider of screen what kind of technology they are planning to release in the future. Yourself, you want to show them what type of project you want to launch in the future. So you get meetings, and you get meetings to discuss plans and how things will be happening in the future. And so this is about aligning with the supplier. This is a tech day. This is an innovation meeting within your classic governance for supplier relationship management. It's about seeing what's the plan for the future on both sides. It can take place in your company, at the supplier, in an hotel room, wherever that you choose. Usually it's one supplier, but in some industry you can also bring few people from the chain. I've seen cases in telecom where you had the client, the company, and the supplier together for this type of things. But typically it's one-to-one. It will be, selected internal partners, just a few key people that can benefit from working on a discussion. And, this is about future. This is about, looking at the life cycle of the industry and taking, within 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, what type of innovation are going to be in the picture, what type of novelty is going to come, and, being able to align on this and making sure that we're going in the same direction. So that's another way to another type. So, hey, I'm not going to describe all the one I have, because at the end, my message is simple. What you need is to define your own goals. What you need is to clearly, say what you want to achieve. And then you want to look at the parameters. Do you want to take people from your company out? Do you want to simply see, or do you want to do something? Go on prototyping, developing proof of concept rapidly with some of the suppliers? Is it about a few? Is it about one? Is it about many on both sides? And what's the horizon you want to look at? And never forget, this is not just about something you create in 6 weeks. You need to work, you need to prepare, and for that, there's a number of questions that I can help you with. So that's what I call the Innovation Workshop Navigator. So this is something you can have on your wall. You can run that as part of your purchasing activities or in a meeting with the business partner. hey, you can describe on what topic we would like to have an innovation workshop, what is it that we would like to achieve out of it, this would be the aim, what we need to do in order to prepare, that's start to do the configurate, you use the configurator, and then you say how we prepare for that. Oh, we need a brief, we need a list of problems, we need to send that, we need to receive solution, we need to pick the ones. I mean, you know, this is the whole preparation. You need to list who should be in the room, what type of functions should be involved, what are the players that should be invited from inside the company, what are the suppliers that should be invited, and who in the suppliers should be there. So it's not always about, you know, having your key account manager. This can be quite, you know, quite different. This can be, you know, sometime head of technical services. This can be the CEO. I mean, that's for you to see what are the right people you need. And then what would be your agenda in your navigator, in your ear? You would define what would be the agenda of the day, of the 3 months of joint work. How would you follow up on it? In the case of L'Oréal, what's important is not just to put a lot of work up front in order to make it a success, but also follow up, make sure that things are going to come out of it, making sure that, you know, there is something happening, projects are starting and things like that. And I'm not going to ask you to put a KPI and a target on this. No way. What I want you is to be clear about what are the signs of success. What do you want to see? And this is certainly more than just, you know, people smiling at the end of the event and people being happy and very positive. You know, you need to describe what will tell you that you've been successful with that event. Don't try to turn that into a KPI. Just but make sure you've got something that help you understand if you achieve your goals. Don't force to have, like, you know, at least 5 projects. You know, no, I mean, maybe it's good out of a workshop to have 3 projects. Maybe it's good to have 7. You know, we're talking about innovation. You might not know from day one. You want to have some. You want to have some new stuff going, but you know, don't force it into numbers. Question. There's a question about the follow-up should have some defined measurement. Yes, if you simply use, you know, the word measurement. So I think the point is not to turn that into targets and incentives or anything like that. So you want to make sure that in the case of the L'Oréal one, for instance, you have so many people attending the event on one side, that you've got, you know, so many likes and that you've got data and that you're able to play with that data and you can measure, you know, which of the brand, which of the business unit was most interested by which supplier. It doesn't mean that you've got a target of having 5 products starting out of this, 5 new products or 5 new projects. I think it's important to, you know, just not try to box everything into too much of a logic. You know, yes, you need measurement, and never forget the people who say you can't. If you want to get something, you've got to measure it. You only get what you measure. Mr. Deming, Edward Deming, who said that, he was against setting targets on everything. So measurement is absolutely essential. You need to measure the outcomes. You need to measure the input. You need to measure what's happening in your workshops with suppliers. But don't force it into, well, we want with that supplier to develop absolutely a new product so much from day one. Just keep the space open for, you know, looking for problems, looking for solutions. And if you go with confidence in this process, some things will come out of it. Whether this is 5, 6 incremental ones, whether this is, you know, one very radical innovation type of project, things come out of it because you will be well organized. You will find a way of facilitating, bringing everyone together, making sure that there's alignment between problems and solution, that people think and work together. Things will come out of it. Don't try to over what should be coming out of it. because otherwise you'll be killing the creativity and you'll be forcing people to make the figures happen anyway. I know the story. So I think we're reaching the end, huh? So I need to have another survey with you. So question now is, now that we've gone through this, would you like to run an innovation workshop in 2018 or 2019? And what format would you value the most? Keep coming, keep coming. I see the number of answers going up. I see more coming, more coming. Stabilizing now. So, well, more people than at the start wanting to organize one. I think we are 64, 68% now. But let's know. So, you know, that's good. You can see that there is appetite for this type of workshop. Very interesting. I mean, yeah, it's not let's go, it's let's do. But yeah, come and show, 22%, go and see, 18%, let's do, 27%, let's go. Sorry for that. Very, very interesting. So usually, you know, you still see a majority of come and show. Very typically, we still bring in some of the suppliers we have already spotted or we already work with, and we give them some brief and they come and show. Go and see something we need to do more. I know it's important to spend a lot of time with the business partners, building vision of the future together, really understanding their needs, listening to their problems in order to innovate. But yeah, taking them together, traveling a bit, visiting suppliers, talking to them, sharing, you know, your understanding of everything as you go and see together. That's really interesting and good. And the let's do, yeah, you know, that's really important in terms of accelerating some innovation, really getting things done, coming up with proof of concept, being able to, you know, create the appetite for change by showing it's possible to, you know, get some of this done rather quickly. But be careful, because we always love to go to very quickly to prototyping these days. But after, you know, it can take time for industrialization. So if it's very quick to go to prototype today, between the good prototype and the go to market, there is a lot of time. So, you know, manage expectation and make sure you put all the efforts. It's not because there is a prototype and everybody's been very impressed and everybody loves the new concept of a connected this or connected that, you know, this is done. It's only starting, and the industrialization will take different types of workshop probably and meetings that you need to make sure will happen in a great way so you can go in the right direction. Okay, maybe I can, oops, I can share some of my personal lessons learned. So I've been gathering practices related to innovation workshop for now 5 years. You know, trying to have my little list of all the different formats and cases I've seen. It's only one step. So you don't get up one morning and say, oh, I'm going to organize an innovation workshop in 6 weeks. No, this is something that should connect to, you know, your strategies, your plans, and everything. It takes preparation, and you know, it's just one step into a broader innovation process that you want to have alive in your purchasing organization. less is more. So basically, what I see is people trying to start some large scale, a lot of suppliers, a lot of different rooms with a lot of different creativity techniques going on. That's going to impress a lot of people. Okay, that can be a nice way to bring attention, but basically what's important is to make sure that you know you're going to do things that are going to respond to problems, and that's going to help buying solution from outside, so you solve the problem. So very often doing a bit less of innovation workshops, or less smaller ones than bigger ones, could be a good way forward. No improvisation, it takes time, it takes resources. People should dedicate some time to that. In some organization, this has been organized by a specific dedicated team to innovation. In other organization, this is organized by category managers together with other functions. That's for you to find your recipe, but free the time to do that in a good way. Don't improvise, don't rush it, don't do it last minute, please. Otherwise, it will be a waste of time and it will leave a very, negative feeling. One thing that's important is very often it takes facilitation. If you want to, bring some of these, prototyping activities, you want to use some techniques like design thinking or other type of ways of working with the supplier, problem-solving activities, creativity techniques, whatever it takes facilitation. And you certainly have in your company some people that have been appointed into an innovation team, so go and tell them you need their help, ask for support from, innovation managers, from facilitators in terms of, helping you with creating the right environment, using the right innovation rooms within the business. So it's going to be an engaging moment. Don't do that in the room where you organize the annual negotiation. Everybody's going to be sweating in fear. What you want is people to, feel a positive spirit, bring gamification into it, make sure it's engaging, it's facilitated, and everybody's coming up with, a positive attitude. Surround yourself with people who can help with that. So that's all I can share with you. I think that's a big picture introduction to what type of innovation workshop use, how to design the right innovation workshop for you. I've shown the the configurator for that. It's rather simple, but it works in terms of asking the right question for you. And I've provided you, an action plan which is gamified a little bit with the navigator. You can take that, put that on the wall, put some post-it, and here you go. You start planning for your innovation workshop. I gave you a few, elements of advice, feedback, what to do, when to do it. You only learn when you experiment. You only learn where you're ambitious. You only learn when you reflect on your experience. So, go for it. Just pick a case, have a go with it, make sure that, you've got a favorable environment for the first one you pick. Learn from the past ones if you already have some done, and go ahead. Keep open-minded in terms of format and ways of doing this, but please, 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 just make it happen, get things done, and learn from it. So we still have like a few minutes time for question, while some of you might be, sharing some of the question. What can I tell you? I can tell you that tomorrow you will receive the PDF version of the slides plus the link for the video. So the webinar is recorded, and therefore you will be having access to it. There will be a survey when we'll be closing the webinar, and we will be having new webinars on blockchain. In June, 21st of June, we will have one on managing attractiveness. I'll be back on innovation. How do you become attractive to supplier? how to press the right button so they want to work with you. And I'll be doing another one on trends in November. So don't miss the one coming. This will be into the together with the package tomorrow with the PDF we send out. So any question? I'm just getting some thanks. That's kind of nice. Sure you don't have a question? That was so clear. Was it useful? Did you like it? Okay, yeah, some more thanks, and yeah, I want to do some in the future. Good. Don't hesitate to come back to me. You know, myself, I enjoy innovation. So if you have problems, bring them to me, and then you know, I really enjoy having a chat around the challenge you have. So that always gives me some ideas, and that's always interesting. So don't hesitate to me. You know, present me your case, what you want to achieve. We can have a quick discussion on that, and it's always useful to see, you know, how you go further into the next step. Thanks a lot again from coming from all these different industries and all these you know, different country and companies. Really enjoyed being with you today, and I hope that we'll have some opportunities to meet in the future. Have a great day. Thank you.